So, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the AI Files podcast. This is our first guest episode in the new year of 2025. Just a reminder for everybody, the AI Files podcast is your ultimate destination for staying updated on all things artificial intelligence. We dive into the latest developments in the AI world, sharing insights from the corporate landscape. We also bring guests like we have today on to provide their unique perspectives. As a reminder for everybody, I'm Jamie Basilico, co-host of the AI File. Shadab is not with us today. He is tied up, but I will bring you all the great news and information that our guest will have for us today. Again, just as a reminder, my role and focus is a data and AI technical specialist and an architect. I bring over 35 years of expertise in data-related and AI domains, having worked with many companies within the Fortune 500 space throughout my career. As always, please note, this is not an official Microsoft channel. The views and opinions expressed by myself and the co-hosts and the guests are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft. So with that, let's dive in today. I do want to introduce someone who used to actually be a longtime Microsoft person herself. Her name is Michelle Wallig, and we'll have the pleasure of actually having Michelle talk to us today about AI PCs and Windows 11 Copilot and all the great advancements there as it relates to hardware and technology and the crossover to software. So with that, I'd like to welcome Michelle to the stage. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Jamie.
Good to
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate your time
problem.
today and the audience's time. I'm excited to share what I have about AI PCs.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing about it, as well as I'm sure our audience is as well. And great to see you again. And
great to see you.
Be it virtually and in the new year. Just for everybody, we're recording this on January 15th of 2025. So as I was saying to Michelle earlier, I think this is the last day we could say Happy New Year. So Happy New Year to everybody. Hopefully,
Happy New Year, everyone.
You're listening in a close time period to today. Mm-hmm. So, Michelle, you want to give the audience a little bit of background on yourself, other than being a former Microsoftee for 24 years?
So, Jamie and I were partners in crime in our last roles as CTOs at Microsoft, and we have very similar backgrounds. I've just same amount of information. Years of experience and focus on data and AI as Jamie. We have very similar resumes. And so, I've been very fortunate to stay connected to some of the latest developments. And today I want to share what's happening with the AI PCs, much of which you're going to start seeing advertised as the large manufacturers like Lenovo, Dell, Apple share their latest technology. And today I'm going to dive into what makes them special and why people will be deploying them very soon to replace aging laptops. It's my pleasure to also kind of break the ice today with some fun video about, as many of you might be aware of, Jimmy Kimmel, his sidekick Guillermo. They actually were invited to the Qualcomm AI PC launch party in Maui, Hawaii. I wish I was able to go, but
that's not a bad place to get sent to.
Yeah, not a bad gig, right? So Guillermo, he's introduced here as the Chief Technology Officer. He's going to show us some of the fun things that you can do with an AI PC and how it became his best friend.
Awesome. Looking forward to seeing the video.
Here you go.
Honey, you won't believe what an amazing day I had at the Snapdragon Tech event here in Maui. First, I learned 20 new languages.
哎，你是 Guillermo， 我是你的粉丝，我可以跟你自拍吗 ？Sure。谢谢。
Wait, hold on. Then I introduced to the world DJ G Money.
Scratching is my passion.
And I live streamed the whole event to my biggest fans.
Attention, Gear Bros, throw me a like if you love the Snapdragon.
Send a like if you love puppies, surfing chickens, guitar solos, and Mai Tais on the beach.
And the best part is, thanks to Snapdragon, I did all that without charging my battery once.
Hey, who are you talking to?
I just talking to my laptop. It is my best friend.
Oh, beautiful.
Get into your flow to accomplish your dreams with the unrivaled power, battery life, and AI of a Snapdragon-powered PC.
Not bad, pretty good. I do like AMR. So
pretty,
that was
pretty funny. What's interesting there is, I demoed the AI PC and all the Copilot features. He just does a much better job at it. In there, he showed things like co-creator paint, where he took an image of his mustache and put it on the other image. If you notice, when he was communicating with that person, it was using something called live captions, so that it was translating the person's language into English so he could understand what they were saying. That was very useful, like in Teams meetings. You're speaking with somebody from another country. They don't have to speak English. The Copilot live captions will translate in real time what they're saying in English, and it'll take your English and translate it into their language. So say you're speaking with somebody who speaks Mandarin Chinese, it'll translate back and forth in real time. It's amazing. But he demoed that in there. The most popular feature, I guess, is he showed in the beginning, like how he was with the laptop the entire day. It has 24-hour battery life. And that's great for people that are marketers or, consultants that are on airplanes and trains, and you're traveling all day and your laptop, you don't lose power at all and have nowhere to power it up, right? So 24-hour battery life is like one of the most popular features.
Yeah. And that's super important. I mean, I know my laptops, the ones that are a couple of years old, certainly lose their charge, and I'm lucky if I get 2 hours on it. But especially when you're doing more sophisticated things that are leveraging the AI capabilities of hardware, that's going to require power. So the ability for those machines to stay up and running for a long period of time, even while using the hardware, which we'll get into on these machines, it's even more impressive. So
yeah,
really pretty cool.
So,
with that, I guess maybe we'll jump into a couple of questions for you, Michelle.
Yes, for sure. Please.
You kind of just started out with that video, and obviously it's around Snapdragon and the hardware. That's obviously going to be related to, I'm assuming, some of the things that you're doing. So can you provide some overview of the project for our audience and the things that you're working on as it relates to Lenovo go-to-market, and how specifically that integrates with Windows 11 Copilot and the Lenovo AI PC?
Sure. Let me try to bring up this presentation. Sorry, hang on a second. Okay, I don't know. Can you put it on the, there we go. All right, perfect. So it is really going to be your new best friend. Most companies have replacement policies for laptops 3 to 5 years, and we're at a juncture where 114 million AI PCs will be sold in the next year or two to replace aging laptops. Companies will be making investment in these, especially driven by some of the things we're going to talk about here. Some new chipsets called the neural processing unit that's designed specifically for AI workloads and creation of apps. A little disclaimer up front. This is all information that's publicly available, as Jamie said, not necessarily the opinion of Microsoft or anybody else, but is information to share about what's coming in terms of what I call the edge computing revolution. The AI PC, what I spent the last several months on was really how to, help people understand what the new Windows 11 plus Copilot capabilities are. There's a brand new button on your laptop screen, that's the Copilot logo. In wave one which is available now. If you buy an AI PC, you're going to have things that help with the Win11 capabilities. It's all about communication, creativity, and connection. So along those lines, you're going to see something called Paint Co-Creator that helps marketers or even people. You don't have to be a creative person. This will make you a creative person to create images, things that you might need for marketing, ad campaigns, things you might need for presentations that you're creating. Noise suppression is when you're in an airport, when you're in a busy open office and you're on a Teams meeting, for example. Noise suppression gets rid of that kind of background noise. Studio effects improves the imagery of your presentation within Teams, for example, so that it's like you're in a studio. You have the right lighting. You have the right, the camera follows you. It's pretty cool stuff. And that's around effective communication. And then real-time captions, as I mentioned, is available in 48 languages, which is increasing every day, so that you can communicate with your team members in different parts of the world with the real live captions and subtitles underneath the Teams. It's usually the demo that gets the wow factor because it really is useful. It will be useful at the end of the day for many people, and helps do the translation. That's
So-
fun. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, so all of these things are just baked into the Windows 11 Copilot, but enabled through the capabilities or features within the actual hardware that's enabling that. Because you mentioned like the NPU, the neural processing unit for those that want to know the translation from acronyms. But again, all those things all of those Wave 1 capabilities are just baked in to the Copilot and being enabled through that hardware, correct?
That's correct. And I think, what we've come to learn over time is really, the usage of and the performance and the energy usage and much more energy usage, with AI capabilities. And so the NPU and, some of the other things that other chips besides, here on this page, I talk about the Intel processor, Intel, AMD, Qualcomm, they're all going to have, chipsets that are designed specifically for AI workloads and for AI application development and creation, and for using AI apps such as the ones here shown in Wave 1. Wave 2 is really cool. It's called Recall. It's in preview right now, but it's going to be coming out, if it hasn't already. It was supposed to come out, I think, after Christmas. But it helps you recall everything that you did that day. Can you imagine like going back through your day to find that file or to find that phone call or to find, that meeting that you attended, and Recall will help you do that. That's AI that needs that kind of performance that you will find with these more complex chipsets. So it really is the integration with Windows 11 Copilot is, have the enhanced productivity, the seamless integration. There are, now 3 compute engines in these PCs, CPUs, GPUs, and NPUs to handle AI tasks. CPUs are really, what we traditionally have had. GPUs are there to help with enhanced imaging, pictures and that you might have, videos on your laptop. And then NPUs really is to help bring the AI tasks, to you to improve performance and power management, like the 24-hour life of a laptop. So there's things here where Lenovo has taken great pains around sustainability and having a manufacturing process that also takes that into account.
So I guess maybe one quick comment for our listeners on Recall. As you mentioned, this is in preview. I do remember that there was a little bit of how might you say, maybe pushback from people around
politics.
Recall. Yeah, and I think that's why I know it's why timelines had slipped a little bit. So it went into preview or a wider preview for folks back in December. So if you do have the luxury of having a Copilot Plus PC, then you should be able to see the ability to turn that on and actually use recall, which is really great. And I have yet to get my hands on one of these pieces of hardware, but I'm in the running to get one shortly. So I'll see how that actually turns out for real. But let me ask you another question, because we started to talk a little bit about where does the NPUs play in. There's obviously the CPUs and GPUs on these machines, but most people probably have not heard of NPUs or these neural processing units. So, what role does the Qualcomm Snapdragon NPU play in enhancing the performance of these AI capabilities on these machines?
Yeah, so as we have what are called small language models and more, localized work that a person really, if you think about it, anybody, you're working at your laptop all day, right? And and as people say, you're a data scientist and you want to build a model, but you're using a local LLM, or in some cases an SLM, a small language model, which are designed to work with natural language processing, like the translators, in order to help with chat GPTs. There's an amount of energy and power that is required to actually run those AI algorithms, for inference purposes. Here you can see in my slide.
Actually, your slide's not showing. I just got the title one. So if you want to advance that.
Let me see. Sorry about that. I guess you didn't see that one either. But anyway, so the Qualcomm Snapdragon is one of the chipsets. AMD and Intel will also have their own, and we'll be working with the manufacturers. But really, these are designed. The neural processing units are similar to neural processing networks. There's a lot more parallelism in the way data is processed. It's designed specifically for AI algorithms where machine learning or some more sophisticated AI techniques are required, or if you're building a model that's going to be used locally on the laptop by a data scientist, for example, it gives them the power to have the response time that you need, the performance that you need in order to do more advanced AI. So that's my slide here. I don't know. I think we're going to distribute this afterwards, but you can look at it and also check on the web. A lot of this is available out on there, and why they work with the neural processing units. It was a requirement, for the AI models to be run locally.
Got it. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. So it's really about what these, what the NPUs are going to be able to provide as far as, the performance to run things like SLMs on device, as well as then helping out with other processing related to those AI related features.
Yes, for sure. And it's more energy efficient. That's why you have longer, 24-hour uptime of your I had mine like unplugged for 24 hours and it was running. I was really like amazed. I was like, yes, that really works. But it because of the efficiency of the NPU and how it's processing, the AI. So it's not as energy inefficient, if you will, versus a CPU or GPU, which have different purposes on a laptop in terms of serial processing and graphics processing. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I think you might have an architecture slide for us, for those that want to go a little bit deeper in understanding what might be behind the NPU.
Yeah, there. This is. I'm not really going to go deep into it. I have a whole explanation over here why they created this architecture, the hexagon NPU, and is available in the Snapdragon chipset. It's really around how they're doing the memory processing, the scalar processing, it includes the capabilities for vector processing, et cetera. Some more of the advanced AI architecture that is needed for more advanced AI development, a more modern development environment here, and more efficient single core performance. So, having localized, I think edge computing is kind of the next evolution of AI, with 114 million of these going to be sold across the board in the next year or so. There's going to be a need and just evolution of development and engineering that's going to leverage this architecture.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense to be able to support things.
Yeah.
I guess my next set of questions for you, when we think about these small language models and the
Yeah.
variable token length models, certainly
Yes.
exciting advancements.
Mhm.
Can you explain some things on how they're going to, the Snapdragon and the hardware are going to support, natural language processing, especially around things like ChatGPT or any of the other models for NLP, whether or not we're dealing with Gemini or Llama, take your pick.
Sure.
But how is that going to reduce the need for large data sets and complex architecture that would have been needed outside of the advent of the latest hardware and the things that we're dealing with Snapdragon?
So when you're coming out of the world of the large LLMs in the cloud, et cetera, and agentics starts playing into this, into the architecture, agentic AI will naturally require smaller sets of data to satisfy the requirements of a workflow. It's going to be very specific data, or of a chat. Is very specific. I have a lot of examples in the past where I've used kind of common data models that are subsets of the data that's out there in the LLM, where you need just some of it for your SLM. So it's a much simpler architecture, less architecture. And at the end of the day, here, that little image there, and that, where you have your LLM and SLM text generation with SLM, it's more efficient, and it's really going to drive, at the practitioner level, what I call it, more of the local work that really happens day to day. People are working locally and doing their work, whether it's documentation, words, numbers, whatever, calculations, and then this will help them more efficiently build the model. So here, number 3 is like improved performance of the self-attention mechanisms and model compression. That's really, you don't need huge, large language models here. They have, it's another, acronym. I call it very tiny LMs, but it's similar to SLMs. It's not very, very tiny LMs, but the acronym, but it really is, to pinpoint you to, the specific task that you have in front of you.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
I was going to say, we're seeing that too. Like when you look at what Microsoft is producing in the 5 models,
Yes,
Google
exactly.
with Gemini is putting out, smaller models, and they're more nimble, especially when customers are thinking about different ways of actually using something that's more related to their business processes, and they're not going to do that against a GPT 4.0 type class model or a Llama 405B model. You're going to do that against something that's something smaller, like a Flash model or a 5 model. And as you said, with that advent of those small language models or very teeny language models, being able to put that on the footprint of a device makes it more compelling for running things locally. So I definitely see the benefit there.
Yeah, and it's just how people work. I mean, it just makes sense. Edge computing, I just saw the advertisement for the MacBook M4, similar, right? That's where they're headed. It's all about mobility, mobile devices. This is the answer, right? You need the SLM, you need the PI to be able to, actually create satisfy the business cases that are coming as we automate workflows and that kind of thing. That's what this will end up with. right? As you need to automate a workflow of an individual, it's going to be smaller models. It's going to be very specific to the workflow that they're doing.
Yep.
And so, the new technology will require people to learn things like Phi, but and programming around the NLP to take advantage of the NLP requires additional programming. So there's some skill set that has to be acquired, by people in this audience if they want to use this technology, and they will need to be honest, going forward. But it's different, it's another extension of how the AI development environments are evolving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, there's new things coming out pretty much what seems like almost every day.
Yeah.
There were some things that were actually just announced from Microsoft today as it relates to agents. We'll probably
Yes.
talk about that on our next episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point,
Critical.
there's things that are always evolving, and how are we going to adapt as developers, architects, executives that are aligning to this information. So
Yeah.
I guess maybe another question for you. We talk about and I think you probably hit on some of these things already here.
Yeah.
As it relates to
GPT
just
5.3 minis.
Yep. But when we think about the impact on battery life, and you kind of mentioned some of this already, and what the NPU is able to provide in terms of its efficiencies, but how does that compare to some of the traditional CPU or GPU reliance that we have currently today? So what is that really? What is that really giving us? I mean, outside of just the obvious things like, hey, I could run, I could walk around with my laptop for 24 hours, which seems like I do that, or at least I'm connected to some device 24 hours a day. But ultimately, when it comes down to is, what's that impact that will have in terms of, those NPUs on what we may traditionally be used to?
Yeah, and what's interesting is, around the development of NPUs, there's a whole, set of kind of guidance around, and, software engineering around the battery, to be honest. And so the efficient, more efficient AI processing using the battery includes some of the things I have here, with the parallel processing, reduced power consumption, is important, with lower latency and optimizing your algorithms. The real world impact, like I said, this is the most popular thing. It's really kind of funny to see people that have access to this. This is important. This is important to have the laptop available. And so as they evolve the hardware on the battery side, these batteries are kind of part of the whole architecture and requirements for some of the AI processing and consumption of those AI algorithms that comes into play. So, the engineers that have, I'm not a hardware engineer, but the engineers that have come up with this, there are benchmarks out there on the net. You could probably look up from, I don't have it on this chart, but CPU versus GPU versus NPU. They're used for different things, and their battery consumption, is different. But the longevity, between those three NPUs just blows them away. And so, when you have all three on your laptop, it gives you, more power. It gives you more efficient use of energy, and then the longer battery life is welcomed, by the people that are actually using the machine.
Yeah. And I guess it's one thing to think about, I certainly have done some reading on the NPUs, in what it's able to do in terms of like the parallel tasks. It's certainly going to consume less power because of that. And or things that it could just handle in terms of data. I guess the one thing I never really thought of or realized is just the specialized work that went into designing the NPUs in terms of, whatever those quote unquote algorithms, whatever the white coats behind the door, and what they're creating as far as the optimization on those NPUs to really be fine tuned for that lower power consumption, which
Exactly.
ultimately just relates or translates into a longer battery life. So you have all of those
Yeah,
special
ultimately.
AI, but then you've got that specialized
Yeah.
design work that's there.
Yeah. I don't know if that was like, a desired outcome or just like, hey, this happened to be an outcome, but it's definitely one of the more popular features. I'll bet sounds simple, right? But it definitely is from a practitioner's perspective.
So yeah, so here's a question for you. It leads into this, but can you walk us through some use cases where you can think about the NPU itself? How is that advantageous to doing things locally on that hardware versus not having an NPU? So, like, why the NPU?
Yeah, so I think when I looked at, I had, I don't know, a couple hundred personas, and included in that was people that were data scientists that were building models, financial people that were building models, and they people always want faster, higher performance, and the NPU was definitely designed to build very complex AI algorithms, to your point around having to parallelize the data because there is so much data. Because if you can have a large language model locally if you have enough storage, but at the end of the day, it's not a server, right? So you want to kind of have the advantages of what it would be like on a server with this higher powered parallel processing unit. And so that was, as I evaluated like the personas that would be using an AI PC, there's certain frustrations in how they're dealing with data, response time, performance, energy consumption as the AI models get more complex, energy consumption goes up. And that's where the NPUs, especially like around natural language processing, there's a lot of processing that's going on there. Like even although it works great and seems simple, the real live captions and translators, that has a lot of it uses a lot of power to do the translation, real-time translation, and to have access to the different languages. So that's a real usually crowd pleaser demo, because it really shows off the power of the NPU at the end of the day, and the advantage it can have in doing something very useful, somewhat complex, such as language translation.
Right. So, another thing that comes to mind, and it's probably on everyone's thought at least once a day, is around security. So when we think about, how this quote unquote setup, if you will, of using these NPUs and being able to do things on device rather than, without the NPUs, you're going to have the need for connectivity, back to the cloud-based solutions. So I guess the question here is like, is there advantages from a security and privacy standpoint for running these AI algorithms on device?
Yeah.
And and to me, I'm thinking, I'm drawing some parallel. We had some past episodes where we talked about on device on the iPhones with Apple Intelligence, and I think Apple has always been around security and privacy.
Yeah.
And I know for them, being able to run, most people don't realize it, but there's a small language model running when you have Apple Intelligence. By the way, that's usually doesn't answer all the questions because they go back to OpenAI in the cloud. But anyway, bringing it back here is, what are the advantages? And obviously there's got to be some as it relates to security and privacy.
Yeah, I think these were intentional requirements. They're always the concern of the IT groups, that I talk to, that are deploying these AI PCs. Secure, having you still need a lot of the same security policies, et cetera, that you've used in the past. But integration is and having it work the same way it used to with the old laptop was always a concern. right? But this improved security, I have a couple of things here was, controlling the data over the data and less vulnerable to cyber attacks because it's local.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
And so when you are working with sensitive data, you're building a model on payroll data or whatever, you more likely you would be doing that local anyways. Right. And then if you have to push results up to the cloud again, fine. But most people, the practitioners themselves are going to need, that highly secure. Privacy has the same type of, set of requirements. Again, local processing, more the privacy policies that are in place. Everything has to work kind of the same as it used to. That's what the expectation is. And so, with the, some additional monitoring that you can build in with some AI apps that are out there or build yourself bespoke. If you have a breach and you have, the thing with these AI PCs and Copilot, Microsoft, as usual, has hundreds of partners that build special apps like code generation and things like that, or creative, imagery. And so you want to prevent, break-ins, hacks. You need to, from an IT perspective, you need to know where the back door was or where, there was a problem. So these apps have to have kind of the same kind of security and privacy levels, before, they have to be vetted before they're actually installed on the AI PC. It is, there are separate installations from Copilot. And there's a lot of them, a lot of different apps that do these very small, they're like agents, but they do very small tasks. But collectively, you can create a whole marketing campaign if you have the right 5, apps on your laptop. But they have to pass the security and the privacy policies of the IT group. And so, that was a huge focus for them when they're building these machines in general, not just, the chipsets, but in general that, it's going to act the same way as the old laptops did in terms of security and privacy.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said, security is super important and people
for sure
on top of their mind.
Number one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So speaking of people, what experiences do you envision where people would benefit from having, this capability of running AI locally on a device versus not?
Yeah. So Microsoft has always had accessibility features, which is, I think, unique to Microsoft. They're always focused on that. And so when I was talking about like the natural language translators, even just having the subtitles and the captions in English, if you're talking to an all English audience, helps with people that, have accessibility requirements, hard of hearing or things like that, so that they can actually read, what the conversation is going on. So that's a benefit I think that Microsoft always focuses on, and making sure, just like responsible AI, they have accessibility requirements across all the products. That is evident here as well. And so, again, like Win11 is around communications, creativity, and, connection. And so the communications part has to have an accessibility feature alongside it. There's I think it's a natural progression. It's kind of strange because, we started out all working on our laptops, and then we wanted to make sure all the data could be shared. And so we put everything in the cloud. But at the end of the day, people still work locally most of the time. And that's why edge computing or, building chatbots for their phones or, laptops, et cetera, in the workflows and automating the activities that people don't want to do. Let the machine do it. It's going to be better at doing data capture and data consolidation, that kind of thing. And analyzing large language models so that it can help you be more efficient. I think those are the things that are, you're going to see applications built more and more and more of, as people say, everybody wants to automate a workflow of, all kinds of lines of business, customer service, marketing, HR, right? Accounting, whatever. At the end of the day, these PCs are going to just become more powerful as a result, and need this hardware because for that reason, right? That there's going to be a huge focus, in my opinion, on app development at that level. Agentics AI is a complete, kind of dovetail to this totally,
Yep.
right? And so there's some real opportunity here. I don't care what the workflow is. I don't care what the line of business is. There's going to be opportunity across the board. And,
So speaking of opportunity, what would you say is Lenovo's strategy and their opportunity as it relates to this broader market shift for local processing, or just not having as strong a dependency on external data resources as it relates to AI?
Yeah, I think people treat PCs like as a commodity, and I think, like I said, edge computing I think is going to be the next big kind of evolution, and so you got Lenovo and other manufacturers kind of in front of that. They know, like I said, there's going to be 114 million units will be shipped in this year alone. That's a ton of units.
That's a ton.
And companies are making massive investments, $600,000, $1 million, to replace aging laptops, and to also to Lenovo's kind of go to market point. It's really around their focus on the persona and focus on who's going to be able to leverage a lot of the Copilot features that are available now, versus apps that still have, versus the apps that are out there as well, versus agentics that's really going to be take over as these laptops land in people's hands, and they're going to want things to be honest. Yeah. And the software and capabilities will be there. Like I said, we still have to get kind of caught up on PHY and how to create and leverage the NPU. There's techniques that are going to have to be done to leverage that. It doesn't necessarily come automatically, and so I think that they're really focused on just being able to satisfy their customers, just as any manufacturer would be, based on what they're asking for, what customers' jobs look like, and where the opportunities are.
Yep. So all this talk of the NPUs and the AI-based hardware sounds awesome, but there's always got to be some catch. So I would say my question for you would be, what trade-offs is someone going to run into when they look at using an NPU or a AI-based hardware that's got NPUs, and what that might mean for non-AI based applications?
Yeah, I think NPUs, CPUs, GPUs, NPUs have different use case scenarios, right? Like the NPU is kind of strictly designed for AI. CPUs have been around for a long time, and they're really good at like calculations and serial processing. GPUs are definitely designed for videos and image capture. So, it's really like, if you can, you can select which one you want to use potentially by, building the software around it. But you have to kind of understand what each of them is used for, and use the appropriate one, if that makes sense. Because this first trade-off of performance versus power efficiency, that there is, the NPU is more power efficient, but they may not match the raw performance of a GPU for what the GPU is designed for, if that makes sense. So
it goes back to specialized tasks. So,
right.
It's trying to fit a round peg through a square hole.
Yeah, you want to use the right tool for the right, not every hammer is going to be used. You're not always going to need a hammer, right? Yeah. So, and it costs more. These, if you have a CPU, GPU, NPU, it's going to cost more, I think. So the investment, that the people that are making the decisions around the purchase of these, they're looking at the productivity gains. There's still an ROI. There's still an ROI that has to be calculated versus, the productivity gains, the workflows that are needed, the additional AI, software engineering potentially, but it could have huge gains, 70% productivity. In some cases, you got a room of 20 people. Now you gave them, they're all creatives, right? They can be creative even if they're not, with some of the products that are available out of the box. So it really is, and then, one thing here, so the cost and complexity, there's new engineering that has to happen around building NPUs and using Phi with it, for example, limited flexibility. So again, these are optimized for AI tasks. So if you use it for something else, it's really a waste. You're using a hammer, to solve all the problems, right, which isn't necessarily a great idea. And then challenges to real-time applications. It's not a perfect world yet. There's still a lot of things that you have to possibly code around, latency, response times, other constraints, resource constraints that are out of your control, data quality and quantity. This is always going to be, when you're building apps, you need penetration testers, you need quality control, you need business, quality checks to make sure that the AI is giving you the right outcomes, especially in light of, some of the unique things that AI can do, hallucinations and make answers up that don't exist, things like that. You still need the quality control. You can't really get away from that. And, ethical considerations. Still have all that, right? Still have responsible AI, still have ethical AI, still need AI governance, data governance, all those, tried and true techniques. You got to do them, even with the power of these new laptops. You still have to do some of those basic things that we do as data and AI people.
So with everything that we just talked about in the last 45 minutes or so, around the hardware, around these capabilities, around the NPUs and what it really means, what do you think are the next steps for Lenovo's AI initiatives? And probably more importantly, how is that going to impact like me and you and anybody else that are consumers and the expectations that we might have for AI in personal computing and personal computers?
Yeah, I think that, a lot of it boils down to, if you're going to replace AI PCs and you have, data scientists, they're probably going to be, the first in line, right? So I think a lot of the decision making that's going on right now is really, these are more expensive machines. So who's going to get them? Who will be building those apps? Who will be building the algorithms, that can leverage some of the, the newest technology? Is it people also like in your consulting and marketing where even the 24-hour battery life is going to, be advantageous, to your day-to-day processes and day-to-day workflows and ultimately revenue? There's, I think, a lot of decisions that still have to be made. Are people comfortable with, the security and the privacy is the same as before? They really able to manage all the new apps that are going to need to be installed. There's still a lot of decision making that has to go on, I think, in the purchase of these and the replacement of current laptops with these. Who gets it? How are they going to be used? And, is the investment, is there, an ROI that makes sense? Still, the usual stuff.
Right. all the typical things that we're used to, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Same thing, but different.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, today is the day. Just like Guillermo said, it can be your new best friend. I really enjoyed having one. I'm finished my project now, so I don't have it anymore. But, it's an amazing machine. I was really amazed how simple, like all those Wave 1 features that we just talked about, they're settings. You just go to settings and you toggle them on and off. So simple, right? And then you have at your fingertips, it's kind of sophisticated capabilities like the studio effects. I was wowed by where, you're literally on camera and you're going like this and the camera moves to center you in the middle. So like you're in a studio, had lighting, had the sound, all that. So, it was a setting, so simple. So Microsoft did a really good job, I think, in setting it up so that it's easy to use. And it's a use selling, and it's going to be a use selling point for AI PC, in my opinion. Copilot.
Like I said at the opening, I'm kind of due for a new computer, so I've been eyeing up getting one, and I think Shadab, I think his daughter or something like that might have one as well. So eager to see, people's initial thoughts and response on, this type of hardware. So
I didn't see many of them hit the stores like Best Buy at Christmas time yet, but it's coming because I saw, like I mentioned, the Apple MacBook M4 is already being advertised, so that's hitting the stores soon. And then the IT organizations are going to start deploying them. That's inevitable this year.
For sure.
So, if anyone has other information, please contact me. Here's my contact information. Thank you so much, Jamie, for
thanks for
spending the time today.
Thanks for taking the time and jumping on with us. And look forward to chatting with you some more in some future dates. So,
take care, everyone.
right.
Enjoy your AI PC.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.